video of audience as exam preparation for A2 Media Studies question 1B. Make notes throughout this video to summarise your own understanding of the theories and ideas expressed. Where necessary, stop the video and make further notes or look up any areas you need further clarification. In defining audience, this will be the most simple definition, an umbrella term for the person or people reading any media text. With the advent of digital technology, there have been lots of theories around what is an audience, as many say it is now hard to define. For the purpose of this question, you'd be looking at those viewing your product and who you intend to target with. The term reading is important to use. Though it may not sound right, audience is always described as reading media texts, even though they'll largely be from visual cues. You can still read an image to understand it, through the visual language you're trying to interpret. We decode media texts in order to understand them, and we decode everything around us for the same reason. These are some of the theories outlined in this video. The effects model, uses and classifications, and reception theory are the most important ideas to talk about in your response. When approaching the exam, it's important you talk about the right things. These questions might help. Who is the target audience? How is that target audience represented in your production? How can your product be applied to audience effects, reception, or pleasure theories? How is your production a reflection of changing audience consumption habits? How was your audience constructed and researched? What was your audience's response to the production? It's a good idea to start with who is your target audience. During the evaluation of your music video, you will have composed questionnaires and focus groups in order to understand how your audience read your production. This is something you should use in responding to this question, as you need to talk about how you speak to your target audience throughout. You can define them by age, race, gender, social class, and think about what their subculture is, what their attitude, style, taste, behaviour, fashion, culture, values. Look up ABC demographics. This is the method of categorising by social class based on working skill, e.g. upper middle class, working class, etc. Do you know which your audience would fall into? Think about why your product appeals to your audience and how your audience feedback can help you to understand them and how they've read your text. You would use relevant audience theories to back up this finding and demonstrate an understanding of who your audience are and how you've created your production to speak to them. This is a One Direction fan. You can class their fan base as mainly female and under 18. They would be mainly white and middle class, though they might have a broader cultural appeal because Niall is Irish, Zayn was born to British Pakistani father, and Louis is from a working class family in Doncaster. Therefore, they represent a wider set of people. Their music and videos are created to appeal to this fan base. The music and lyrics are often about love in a young and innocent sense, and their videos will always show them doing something carefree and fun, a day at the beach, a ride on an open-top bus, etc. These are not values shared by older audiences, and this helps them to appeal to this young fan base. Think about the values that are communicated in your music video and how you might interpret who your audience is. This is at the heart of audience theory and analysis, so you will have made your production to appeal to these people or groups. This is the effects model. This is approaches that emphasise what the media do to their audience, how the media texts influence how people think and respond, that the audience is therefore passive and accept whatever they are given. The Frankfurt School is a name given to the cultural theorists from the 1930s who were concerned with issues of advertising and propaganda, and they came up with theories on mass culture. There is lots of criticism both for and against the effects models, as you'll see why. The hypodermic needle theory is a very old idea that suggests audiences passively receive the information transmitted to them via media text, without any attempt on their part to process or challenge the information. It thinks audiences will therefore be directly influenced by media products and what they see. This theory came about from the Frankfurt School at a time when advertising and propaganda were a worryingly persuasive medium. Now critics say that media is no longer new to us and we are better rehearsed in selecting what we accept. A task. Do you think audiences now are more media literate? By media literate, we mean the ability to analyse and evaluate messages in media texts. A media literate person will be able to read media text and gauge their own reading, regardless of what is being given. Moral panics is a term coined by theorist Stan Cohen. It is an exaggerated media response, usually negative, to a particular social group, condition, or person. Video games and social media are recent examples of moral panics that they've been blamed for declining moral standards and violent behaviour. It is the fear or panic that audiences will be directly influenced by this behaviour and emulate it in the real world. This is a valuable theory for looking at music videos and exploring youth subculture and the associations the media give to muggers, hoodies, and chads, for example. It's also useful for other genres such as metal and rap music, where conventional themes of rebellion, sex, drugs, rock and roll are seen to be glamorized. This is Rihanna's music video for Man Down. This video was the subject of a moral panic as it seemed to justify why you might want to shoot someone. The lyrics are around the fact that Rihanna shoots someone who later turns out to be her attacker. The opening scene is graphic and shows her as vulnerable. This depicts her as a victim and therefore justifies her crime. In her private life, Rihanna has also been subject to an attack by on-again, off-again boyfriend Chris Brown, and therefore people know her as a victim anyway. She's also known as a sex symbol and someone with a lot of control. This image of her adds to the idea that we could accept she is a good person, and therefore it would justify her shooting someone in this video. The moral panic came about because media critics said it would suggest to her younger fans that it's okay to do this, which in society we would know it isn't, and it would suffer serious consequences, which is not something we see in the video. Visit the website above to read an article on Rihanna's Man Down video and how it fits the moral panic theory perfectly. The uses and gratifications model is the opposing idea of the effects model. Far from being a passive mass, audiences are made up of individuals who actively consume text for different reasons and in different ways. This is because they're individual and bring their own set of values to their understanding. Chandler, Bloomer, and Katz, Laswell and McQuail are a few of the theorists who've written about what these uses and gratifications are. And these ideas have obviously developed over time as our use of media has changed. These are the 4 uses and gratifications McQuail suggested audiences have with media texts. You have information, to gather knowledge on a subject, personal identity, to reinforce your own personal values, integration and social interaction, to develop social empathy or to simply use in social situations of your own, and entertainment, a form of escapism from your own life. The problem with applying the uses and gratifications theories to music videos is that it is centred around the use of the individual. You would therefore need to know from your audience feedback what the individual gets from your production if approaching this concept in the exam. You could argue that music videos are solely for entertainment, but consider if audiences, especially young audiences, might use them for another reason. In Coldplay's video here for Paradise, we see an elephant escape from a zoo to go to his friends in Africa. The elephant turns out to be in a band and they perform on stage together at the end. Audiences could watch the video with the following uses. Information, to gain knowledge on the plight of animals in captivity. Personal identity, the video could relate to feelings of being separated from family and the difficult relationships they need to sort out. Social identity, you could use knowledge of the video to converse with friends about it. Or entertainment, people could be watching it simply because it's an entertaining story about an elephant. The use may depend on how the audience reads the text, and therefore you can go back to a debate on the dominant and oppositional readings. We'll come on to different readings next. Task 2. Think about your audience research. Did anyone talk about what they got from your music video? Could you apply one of these uses? Do you think music videos are solely for entertainment, or can audiences take something else from them? This is the reception theory, where audiences are active and dictate how a text is encoded and decoded. Stuart Hall said that audiences read media texts and interpret the ideas behind them in different ways. This relates to the denotative and connotative meanings, and how audiences accept those they are given. We have the dominant reading, the oppositional reading, and the negotiated reading. Looking at the negotiated reading, were you surprised in your audience feedback by how your audience read something differently from how you intended it? This would be a negotiated reading. They haven't rejected your meaning, but they've interpreted it in a different way. This is the music video for Somebody's Everything by Skepta. It shows a young girl who is seemingly very sad and seeks solace in the pages of glossy magazines so she can aspire to their image, which is helped by tying in with the lyrics of the song. Skepta sings that he then doesn't help this because he sees such girls in strip clubs serving his own interests. The images are then of the model on the cover of the magazine being stripped bare with reverse imagery to show she is normal looking underneath. The dominant reading here is that the media is to blame for giving this girl low confidence and self-esteem because of those images she is given from a young age, which are unrealistic and dangerous. The oppositional reading is that the media isn't to blame, and other factors will have meant that she's accepted these images in this way, and it is society in general that is not right. The negotiated reading is that perhaps it's a bit of both, and that she probably didn't have much self-confidence to start with, but the media images have not helped this. Maybe in your music video you give all three readings to your audience. Think about how you might do this. You could argue that most music videos, and media text for that matter, are open to negotiated readings because you never truly know what the producer intends unless they tell you. Everyone will read a text in a different way because of their personal processing, and this is what the reception theory is about. Utopia is an imagined place or state of things where everything is perfect. Utopian solutions are therefore evident in many music videos. Richard Dye originally said this of musicals, that they offer escapism and the idea of something better that our lives don't provide. These are utopian solutions. He goes on to suggest that utopian sensibilities inherent in mainstream entertainment, abundance, energy, intensity, transparency and community, compensate for the specific inadequacies in our society. Where scarcity is the reality and abundance is the utopian solution, we are usually talking about the positive opposite of what we deem to be reality. This is the Justin Bieber video for Beauty and a Beat, and it's all about energy and a sense of community, and depicts these in his utopian world of parties and excess with no cares or worries. These could also be labelled as ideologies. Revise this term if you don't remember its meaning. With lyrics such as "All I need is a beauty and a beat," and "Leave your worries at the door," it is easy to use utopian solutions to convince the audience that this is the best way to live. We would read this as a utopian solution because it's not how we see our reality. We applied the theory of the male gaze to representation, but it's also about how the audience dictates the images we're given of women on screen. Laura Mulvey said that media images are shown through the ideas of men in a voyeuristic way. Women have also learned to recognise this and expect to be looked at. Mulvey believes that female characters within the media are either depicted as the virgin or the whore, with very little in between. Don't forget that some of the theories we've looked at will cross over with a couple of the key concepts. Just make sure that you're clearly talking about the audience here and how they receive the male gaze theory, instead of necessarily just how women are represented. A final word on audience. When discussing audience, you can talk about the audience's interpretation of the other key concepts. So, how are people represented and how do audiences feel represented? Think back to those questions at the start of the video. Who is the target audience? How is the audience represented in your production? How can your product be applied to audience effects, reception, or pleasure theories? You'll need to demonstrate an understanding of who the audience is in your production and use theories to back up your decisions on how you've targeted them. Thanks for listening.